One checked his watch for the 20th time. His hands were shaking. In exactly 45 minutes, he would walk into the most important interview of his life. The Galactic Engineering Corps only gave humans one chance. One single chance to prove they were more than a minor species. One chance to escape the poor districts and build something that mattered. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. The streets of New Sol Station were crowded as always. Humans pushed past each other, rushing to their low-paying jobs in the factories and cleaning crews. Above them, through the transparent ceiling of the orbital station, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the great empires built wonderful things. Starships that could cross galaxies, weapons that could crack planets, medical technology that could cure any disease. And humans cleaned their floors and fixed their toilets. One gripped his tablet. Inside it was his portfolio. 3 years of designs, 3 years of sleepless nights, 3 years of skipping meals so he could afford better software. His mother had worked double shifts at the recycling plant to pay for his education. His younger sister had given up her own dreams so he could chase his. He could not fail them. The quarter was on the other side of the station. It would take him 30 minutes to walk there if he moved fast. There were dragon-like beings who ruled half the galaxy. They were proud and ancient and powerful. They looked at humans the same way humans looked at insects. But the Galactic Engineering Corps was based in their quarter. If one wanted to become an engineer, he had to go where the engineers were. He walked faster. The human district slowly changed around him as he moved toward the border. The buildings became cleaner. The lights became brighter. The smell of recycled air became fresher. Soon, he passed through the checkpoint that separated the human zone from the mixed zone. An alien guard looked at him with bored eyes. Purpose of visit. Interview, one said. Galactic Engineering Corps. The guard made a sound that might have been a laugh. Good luck, little human. One did not respond. He had heard such words his whole life. He was used to them. He kept walking. The mixed zone was full of different species, tall with their blue skin and 4 arms, short with their stone-like bodies and glowing eyes, elegant who seemed to float rather than walk, and everywhere they moved through the crowds like kings, their scales shining, their wings folded against their backs, their golden eyes looking down on everyone else. One checked his watch again, 32 minutes. He was going to make it. That was when he heard the sound. It was a weak cry, barely more than a whisper. It came from a narrow alley between 2 tall buildings. Most people walked past without even turning their heads. One almost did the same. But something made him stop. He looked into the alley. An old female lay on the ground. Her scales were faded to pale silver, the color of extreme age among her kind. Her wings were bent at wrong angles, clearly broken. Blood dripped from cuts on her face and arms. 3 stood over her. There were creatures with hard shells and sharp mandibles. They were known throughout the station as criminals and thugs. These 3 were big ones, their shells from many fights. One of them was pulling jewelry from the old dragon's claws. Another was kicking her in the ribs. The third was watching the alley entrance with lazy attention. One's heart stopped. He looked at the scene. He looked at his watch, 29 minutes until his interview. Every logical part of his brain screamed at him to keep walking. This was not his problem. The hated humans. They would never help him if the situation was reversed. If he got involved, he might get hurt. He might get killed. He might miss his interview. His interview, his one chance, his family's sacrifice, everything he had worked for. The old dragon cried out again as they kicked her harder. One thought of his grandmother. She had died 2 years ago, alone in a hospital bed because the family could not afford better care. In her final days, she had held his hand and said words he would never forget. She had whispered, a man who walks past suffering is not a man at all. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he was walking into the alley. "Leave her alone." His voice came out stronger than he expected. They turned to look at him. Their compound eyes glittered with cruel amusement. The largest one clicked its mandibles in what passed for laughter among their species. "A human," the creature said. "A tiny human wants to play hero." I said leave her alone. They looked at each other. Then they laughed again. It was an ugly sound like metal scraping against metal. "This is business, little insect," the leader said. "Walk away and live. Stay and die." One did not move. The old dragon looked up at him. Her golden eyes were full of pain and confusion. Why would a human help her? Her kind had never done anything but look down on his species. They called humans primitive, weak, worthless. And yet here this young man stood, his body between her and her attackers. "Please," one said to her. "Grandmother, can you stand? Can you run?" The word surprised her. Grandmother. Humans used it as a term of respect for elderly women. No one had called her that in a very long time. My wings," she whispered. "It's okay, just try to get to the main street. Someone will help you." The leader stepped forward. "Enough talking, you made your choice, human." One looked at his watch one last time. 24 minutes. Even if he somehow survived this, he would never make his interview. Everything he had worked for would be gone. He thought of his mother, working herself to death for his dreams. He thought of his sister, giving up her own future for his. He thought of all the years of sacrifice and struggle. Then he looked at the old dragon, bleeding and afraid. He put his tablet down carefully against the wall. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, to his family, to himself, to all his broken dreams. Then he raised his fists and faced the. "Come on then," he said. "Let's see what you've got." One was not a fighter. He had never trained in combat. He had never lifted weights or learned martial arts. He was a skinny engineering student who spent his nights writing code and his days dreaming about starships. His muscles were weak. His reflexes were slow. His body was built for thinking, not fighting. But he had grown up in the lower districts of New Seoul Station. And in the lower districts, every boy learned one important lesson very early. Sometimes you could not run. Sometimes you could not hide. Sometimes you just had to stand there and take the beating. The trick was to keep standing. The first came at him fast. Its armored fist crashed into his chest like a hammer. One felt his ribs crack. The pain was incredible, like fire spreading through his body. He stumbled backward but did not fall. The second blow caught him in the face. His lips split open. Blood filled his mouth. The world spun around him, all colors and lights and darkness mixing together. Still he did not fall. "Tough little insect," the leader said, almost impressed. "Most humans would be crying by now." One spat blood on the ground. "Most humans are smarter than me." They laughed and came at him again. One did not try to win. He knew that was impossible. 3 against 1 human was not a fair fight. It was not even close to a fair fight. Their shells were like armor. Their claws could cut through metal. Their strength was 5 times greater than any human. But he did not need to win. He just needed to buy time. He grabbed a broken pipe from the ground and swung it wildly. They jumped back, surprised by his sudden attack. The pipe bounced off the leader's shell without doing any damage, but it forced them to be careful. "Run," one shouted at the old dragon. "Please, grandmother, run now." The old was trying to stand. Her broken wings hung uselessly at her sides. Her legs were shaking. But slowly, painfully, she was crawling toward the entrance of the alley. One of them tried to go after her. One threw himself in its path. The creature's claw raked across his arm, cutting deep into his flesh. He screamed but did not move. "Your fight is with me," he gasped. They stared at him with its compound eyes. "Why?" it asked. "Why do you protect her? Her kind treats you like dirt." "I know. She would not protect you. No would ever help a human." "I know." "Then why?" One looked back at the old dragon. She had stopped crawling. She was watching him with those ancient golden eyes. There was something in her expression he could not understand. Surprise, maybe, or confusion, or something deeper. "Because she needs help," one said simply. "Because I was here, because no one else stopped." The leader tilted its head. "You are strange, human, very strange." Then it hit him again. This time the blow knocked him to the ground. The surrounded him, kicking and punching. He curled into a ball, protecting his head with his arms. Each impact sent waves of pain through his body. He could feel things breaking inside him. Ribs, maybe worse. But he did not scream for help. He did not beg them to stop. He just kept his eyes on the old dragon, making sure she was still moving toward safety. She had almost reached the main street. "Enough playing," the leader said. "Finish him." One of them raised its claw for a killing blow. That was when the siren started. Station security. Someone on the main street must have finally noticed something wrong. Or maybe the old dragon had reached someone who cared. Either way, the sound of approaching guards filled the alley. They looked at each other. "Not worth it," the leader decided. "The old dragon has nothing valuable anyway. Let's go." They ran. Within seconds, they had disappeared into the maze of back alleys that connected the station. One lay on the ground, bleeding and broken, watching them go. Then he looked at the alley entrance. The old dragon was gone. She had escaped. She was safe. One smiled through the blood on his face. Then he remembered his interview. With shaking hands, he reached for his watch. The screen was cracked, but he could still read the time. His interview had ended 15 minutes ago. He had missed it. His one chance, gone forever. He looked at his tablet, still leaning against the wall where he had left it. When he tried to reach for it, his arm would not move properly. Something was wrong with his shoulder. Maybe it was broken too. The security guards arrived. They were tall and blue-skinned, looking down at him with expressions that mixed pity and contempt. "Human," one of them said, "what happened here?" One whispered, "3 of them attacked an old woman." "And you tried to stop them?" The guard sounded surprised. "Alone?" "Yes." "Why?" One did not answer. He did not have the strength. The world was getting dark around the edges. He could feel himself sliding away into unconsciousness. The last thing he saw before everything went black was his tablet. The screen had cracked when he put it down. All his files, all his designs, all his work. 3 years of dreams, broken on the dirty ground of a back alley. He tried to feel regret. He tried to feel anger at himself for throwing everything away. But all he could think about was the old dragon's eyes. That look of surprise when he called her grandmother. That confusion when he stood between her and the... At least she was safe. At least someone was safe. The darkness took him and one knew nothing more. One woke up in pain. Every part of his body hurt. His ribs screamed when he breathed. His arm throbbed with each heartbeat. His face felt like someone had used it for punching practice, which, he supposed, was exactly what had happened. He was in a medical clinic, the cheap kind. The walls were stained. The bed was hard. The medical robot that moved around the room was an old model, at least 20 years outdated. This was the kind of place where poor humans came when they had no other choice. His friend sat in a plastic chair next to his bed. Her eyes were red from crying. She was holding his broken tablet in her hands, looking at it like she was looking at a dead body. "You're awake," she said softly. "How long?" His voice came out rough and weak. 2 days, they said you were lucky. They could have killed you easily. They were just playing with you." She paused. "Why didn't you run, one? Why did you fight them?" He tried to sit up. The pain made him stop. There was an old woman. She needed help. "An old woman," corrected. "I heard the security report. You almost died for a..." She was scared. She was old and hurt and scared. His friend shook her head. She did not understand. Maybe no one would understand. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. The Galactic Engineering Corps sent a message. One's heart, which had already been broken, somehow broke a little more. What did it say? No rescheduling, you missed your interview. Your application is permanently rejected. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, one. I know how hard you worked. He stared at the ceiling. The ugly ceiling of this cheap clinic. 3 years of work, 3 years of sacrifice, 3 years of hope. Gone. My tablet, he asked. Held it up. The screen was cracked in a dozen places. When she tried to turn it on, nothing happened. The files might be recoverable, maybe, if we can find someone with the right equipment. But they both knew that was unlikely. Good data recovery cost money, money they did not have. One closed his eyes. He thought about his mother. She would be getting off her shift at the recycling plant soon. She would come to visit him, and he would have to tell her that everything she had worked for was gone. All those double shifts, all those skipped meals, all those years of saving every small coin. Wasted, because her son could not walk past an old dragon in an alley. He thought about his sister. She was smart, smarter than him maybe. She could have gone to university. She could have had a future. But instead, she had taken a job at a food stall so the family could afford one's education. He had promised her that when he became an engineer, he would pay her back. He would send her to school. He would give her the life she deserved. Now he had nothing to give her, nothing except apologies and failure. You should rest, said. Your ribs are badly broken. The doctor said you need at least a month to heal. A month of lying in bed, unable to work, using up what little money the family had left on medical bills. After left, one lay alone in the dark. The clinic did not waste power on lights at night. The only brightness came from the distant stars outside the small window. He did not cry. He was too empty for crying. His mother came the next morning. She was a small woman, thin from years of hard work and poor food. Her hair was even though she was only 50. Her hands were rough and from the recycling machines. She did not yell at him. She did not cry. She just sat beside his bed and held his hand and said nothing for a long time. I heard what you did, she finally said. The security guards told everyone. A human boy who fought 3 to save an elder. I'm sorry, Mother, I'm so sorry. For what? For wasting everything. Your work, our savings, sacrifice, everything. His mother squeezed his hand. Look at me. He turned his head to meet her eyes. Your grandmother would be proud, she said. I am proud, you did a good thing. But the interview. Will there be other interviews? No, other chances, probably not, she smiled sadly. But there will only ever be one, and my one is a good man. That matters more than any job. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to feel better, but the weight of failure was too heavy. After she left, he struggled out of bed and walked to the window. Every step hurt. Every breath was painful, but he needed to see the stars. Out there somewhere was the Galactic Engineering Corps headquarters. Right now, other candidates were probably being interviewed. Talented people from important species. People who would build the starships and space stations and wonders of tomorrow. And one would spend his life cleaning floors, just like every other human. He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. I'm sorry, he whispered to no one, to everyone, to himself. Behind him, his broken tablet sat dark and silent. 3 years of dreams, dead in a cracked screen. He did not know that across the station, in a place of gold and fire, someone was speaking his name. He did not know that his small act of kindness had set something in motion, something that would change not just his life, but the lives of every human in the galaxy. He only knew the weight of his failure, and in that dark clinic room that weight felt infinite. 3 days after leaving the clinic, one was trying to fix his tablet. He sat at the small table in his tiny apartment, using borrowed tools and broken parts from the junk market. His ribs still hurt when he moved. His arm was wrapped in cheap bandages, but he could not afford to rest. He needed to find work, any work. The door buzzer rang. He ignored it, probably a bill collector or a neighbor wanting to borrow something. He did not have energy for visitors. The buzzer rang again, then someone started knocking. "Go away," he called out. "I'm not home." The door exploded inward. One jumped back so fast that his chair fell over. Standing in his doorway were four in full imperial armor. Their scales were dark red, the color of warriors. Their eyes burned like golden fire. Each one was twice his size, covered in weapons and metal plates. Behind them stood two more in black robes, imperial officials, judging by the symbols on their clothes. One of the officials asked. He could not speak. His mouth had gone completely dry. Imperial did not come to the human district. Imperial did not break down doors of poor engineering students. This was impossible. "Yes," he managed to say, "that's me. You will come with us." It was not a request. Two of the armored warriors grabbed his arms. Gently, surprisingly. They were careful not to hurt his injuries, but there was no doubt that he was not being given a choice. "Wait," he said. "What is this about? Am I being arrested?" The officials did not answer. They turned and walked out of his apartment. The warriors followed, carrying one between them like he weighed nothing. His neighbors watched from their doorways. Their eyes were wide with fear. Imperial taking a human away usually meant one thing: that human was never seen again. They put him in a shuttle, not a normal shuttle, a royal shuttle covered in gold decorations and precious gems. The seats were soft and warm. The air smelled like flowers and spices. One had never been in anything so beautiful in his entire life. The shuttle took off. Through the window, he watched the station fall away below him. Then they were in open space, moving toward something massive. A ship, but calling it a ship was like calling an ocean a puddle. The Eternal Flame was the flagship of the Imperial fleet. It was bigger than some moons. Its hull was covered in patterns of gold and crimson. Thousands of windows glowed with inner light. Hundreds of smaller ships flew around it like fish around a whale. One had seen pictures of the Eternal Flame. Every child in the galaxy had. It was one of the most famous ships ever built, and he was flying toward it. "There must be a mistake," he whispered. No one answered him. The shuttle docked. More guards were waiting. They led him through hallways of polished stone and precious metal. Paintings covered the walls, showing great battles and ancient heroes. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually floated near the top. They passed through checkpoint after checkpoint, 17 in total. At each one, guards scanned him, searched him, his identity. Whatever was happening, security was extremely serious. Finally, they reached a massive door. It was made of black stone and gold, carved with images of dragons breathing fire. Two guards stood on either side, each one big enough to crush one with one hand. The doors opened. One stepped into the throne room of the Empire. The room was enormous. The floor was black marble that reflected everything like a dark mirror. Pillars of gold rose toward a ceiling that showed the actual stars through transparent panels. Thousands of nobles stood in rows along the walls, all of them staring at him with curious eyes. And at the far end, on a throne of fire and shadow, sat Queen. One had seen her face on news broadcasts. Everyone in the galaxy knew Queen. She had ruled the Empire for 300 years. She had led armies. She had conquered worlds. She was one of the most powerful beings alive. She was looking directly at him. His legs almost collapsed. The guards held him up. Then he saw someone else, an old female standing beside the throne. Her scales were silver. Her wings were wrapped in medical bandages. Her golden eyes were warm and familiar. The old dragon from the alley. "This is him, Mother," Queen asked. "Mother," One's brain stopped working. The old dragon he had saved, the elderly woman he had fought for, the grandmother he had almost died protecting. She was the queen's mother. "This is him," the old dragon confirmed. Her voice was stronger now, filled with authority and power. The human who threw away his future to save a stranger who gave him nothing but contempt. One wanted to say something, anything, but his voice was gone, his thoughts were gone, everything was gone except shock and disbelief. Queen rose from her throne. She was magnificent and terrifying. Her scales were the color of blood and sunset. Her wings spread behind her like curtains of darkness. Her eyes burned with intelligence and ancient power. She walked toward him. Each step echoed through the silent room like thunder. She stopped directly in front of him, close enough that he could feel the heat radiating from her scales. "So," she said, her voice like mountains grinding together, "you are the human who saved my mother." One tried to bow, tried to kneel, tried to show some kind of respect, but his body would not obey him. All he could do was stare up at the most powerful being he had ever met. He started. The queen waited. "I just did what anyone would do," he finally managed. The old dragon laughed. It was a warm sound full of genuine amusement. "Oh, my dear boy," she said, "that is exactly the problem. Anyone would not do what you did. Almost no one would." She walked down from the throne platform to stand beside her daughter. "I have been testing species for 400 years, the old dragon said, "putting myself in danger to see who would help a weak old stranger. Do you know how many have stopped? How many have risked themselves for someone they did not know?" One shook his head. "3, she said. "In 400 years, 3 beings, 2 were, one was human." She smiled at him with ancient, knowing eyes. "One was you." Throne room was completely silent. Thousands of nobles stood watching. Guards held their breath. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Queen circled around one slowly, studying him like a scientist studying an interesting insect. Her golden eyes missed nothing. The bandages on his arm, the careful way he held his ribs, the fatting bruises on his face. "My mother has a dangerous hobby," the queen said. "She wanders away from her guards. She pretends to be a helpless old woman. She waits to see what happens." Her voice carried a hint of old frustration. "I have told her many times to stop." "And I have ignored you every time," the old dragon said cheerfully. "A mother's right. You could have been killed. But I wasn't, thanks to this young man." Queen stopped in front of one again. She was so close he could see the individual scales on her face. Each one was perfect, polished like a jewel, harder than steel. "Tell me something, human," she said. "You were on your way to an interview, the most important interview of your life. Your one chance to escape poverty and prove your species' worth. You knew this. You knew what you were giving up." "Yes, Your Majesty." "And you knew my mother was a member of a species that has treated humans as lesser beings for centuries, a species that would never help a human in the same situation." "Yes, Your Majesty." "Then why?" The question was sharp and demanding. "Why did you stop? Why did you fight? Why did you sacrifice everything for someone who would never do the same for you?" One was quiet for a moment. He thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing 100 times since that day. Why had he stopped? Why hadn't he just walked away? "Because she was afraid," he said slowly. "I could see it in her eyes. She was old and hurt and scared. And he paused, searching for the right words. "I couldn't just leave her there. It didn't matter who she was or what species she belonged to. She needed help. I was there, so I helped. Even though it cost you everything. Even though it cost me everything." The old dragon stepped forward. She reached out and touched one's face with gentle claws. Her scales were cool against his skin. "You called me grandmother," she said softly. "In the alley, when you were telling me to run, you called me grandmother." One felt his face grow warm with embarrassment. "I'm sorry if that was disrespectful. In my culture, it's a term of respect for elderly women. I didn't mean to. Disrespectful, she laughed. My dear boy, no one has called me grandmother in over 200 years. Not even my own. They call me royal elder or honored ancestor or some other cold title. Her eyes glistened with what might have been tears. It was nice to be reminded that I am still just an old woman who needs kindness sometimes. She turned to her daughter. You see, this is what humans are. Queen tilted her head. What do you mean? We are proud, we are powerful. We have built an empire that spans 1,000 worlds, but somewhere along the way we forgot something important. We forgot how to care about strangers. We forgot how to help without expecting something in return. We forgot. She looked at one with a strange expression. We forgot how to stop. The old dragon walked back to stand beside the throne. Humans are not the species in the galaxy, she said to the assembled nobles. They are not the strongest. They do not live the longest or build the biggest ships or have the most advanced technology. By every measure we use to judge worth, they are a minor species. Insignificant. One listened, his heart sinking. He had known all this already, of course. Every human knew it. But they have something we have lost, the old dragon continued. Something that cannot be measured or weighed or calculated. They are the species that stops. When they see someone suffering, they stop. When they see someone in need, they stop. Even when it costs them. Even when it makes no logical sense. Even when the person they help would never help them back. She pointed at one. This young man gave up his dreams to save an old stranger. He was beaten nearly to death. He lost everything he had worked for. And when I asked him why, do you know what he said? He said she needed help. I was there, so I helped. The old dragon's voice rose with emotion. That is what humans are, and that is worth more than all the technology and power and wealth in the galaxy. Silence filled the throne room. Then Queen spoke. The Galactic Engineering Corps rejected your application, she said to one. They have a policy against rescheduling interviews for humans. One chance only. Her lips curled in distaste. A policy I have always disliked. One nodded. He knew all this already. However, the Queen continued, the Galactic Engineering Corps does not answer to me. It is a multi-species organization with its own rules. She paused. But the Imperial Engineering Division is different. It answers directly to the throne, to me. One's breath caught in his chest. I have seen your files, the Queen said. My people recovered the data from your broken tablet. Your designs are impressive, creative, different from anything my engineers have produced. She smiled, showing teeth like white swords. How would you like to build starships for an empire, one of Earth? He could not speak. He could not think. This had to be a dream. He was still in the clinic, unconscious from his injuries, imagining impossible things. Your Majesty, he managed to say, I don't know what to say. Say yes, the old dragon suggested. That's usually the correct response when a queen offers you a job. Yes, one whispered. Then louder, yes, yes, Your Majesty, thank you, I don't deserve this. Probably not, Queen agreed. But my mother likes you and she is annoyingly stubborn when she wants something. Besides, she looked at him with an expression that might have been respect. The Empire could use more people who stop. Perhaps you can teach us how. 5 years later, Chief Engineer One stood on the bridge of the New Dawn. It was the first capital ship designed by a human in galactic history. Behind him, his crew worked at their stations. Some were human. Some were other species. All of them were his team. His mother had retired from the recycling plant. She now lived in a beautiful apartment with a view of the stars. His sister was in university, studying medicine. His friend had joined his engineering team. And the old dragon, who insisted he call her grandmother, sat in her favorite chair on the observation deck, watching everything with proud eyes. Nervous, she asked. Terrified, one admitted. Good, that means you still have the sense to be humble, she cackled. Now show the galaxy what humans can do. One smiled. He turned to his crew. All stations ready. Ready, Chief. Then let's fly. The new dawn leapt into hyperspace. The stars stretched into lines of light. The ship hummed with power and promise. And in that moment, one knew that everything had been worth it. The pain, the sacrifice, the dreams that had seemed lost forever. Because sometimes the worst day of your life is really the first day of something wonderful. And sometimes a small act of kindness can change not just one life, but the fate of an entire species. Humans were the species that stopped. And now the galaxy knew it.